Hi, everyone. Hi, Tony. Welcome.
Hello. How you doing?
Hello. Doing great. Well, let's give it some time for everyone to be present. Then we can start our presentation.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm gonna. It's okay if I share my screen?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, great.
So, how has your day been, everybody? Sam, I think you're
Your
muted.
sound
Okay,
is
yeah,
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 your sound
yeah.
isn't coming through.
Okay. Hi, Tony.
Hello.
Yes, great. Okay, thank you for being our speaker. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. No problem. Excited to
Okay.
be here.
Thank you so
Hope that.
much. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Can you guys see me, by the way? Can you see
Oh,
me?
Can
yeah. Yeah.
can
Yep,
see you
yep. I can
very
see you.
clearly. So, and by the way, I just want to add something for the STC students and everybody else. Please give Tony as much feedback as you can. Does everybody see the react button? Let's let him know that we're here and appreciating everything that he's doing. Tony, I'm going to be switching to my phone because I'm going over to the ISSA meeting. We're going to push for the May 8th event.
Excellent.
And
Thank you.
and I really want to thank you for all the support that you're providing. Who's going to do the introduction now?
Oh,
Oh,
I
we're not
asked
ready
you.
yet.
Yeah. No, it's 1 minute left. Then Morgan, you can introduce a speak. Yeah. I asked
I can.
Harrison to talk to you. Then you, because you invited Harrison on behalf of us. Yes. No, invited Tony on behalf of us. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, so
Okay.
I get to do the introduction. You're going to make me do that? All right. Hey, I'm going to get started now because it's 4:30 and we are recording this. Tony has been a mainstay the in the technology community. And of all the people that I've met, Tony has been forthcoming in making sure that people understand how to advance their career. He doesn't, he promotes people, is strong about making sure that people can be a success. Now, as a well, as a Marine, no one's ever a former Marine. Once
That's
you're a
right. We
Marine,
get stuck.
you are a Marine for life.
That's right.
He's going to have the type of stick-to-itiveness and strength that we're going to need in this disruptive market. And I've watched to see how he works in the community so people pay attention. Tony, thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Wonderful to see everybody today, and thanks for giving me an opportunity to kind of share some things. This is close, something close to my heart, just because there's a lot of uncertainty out there, and when this opportunity came up to chat about it, the good news is we've been in this situation before, and it's really navigating the climate to still achieve our goals. And so we'll talk about that today. We're going to just tell me if you can see my slides change. Um, Give me a thumbs up if you see the slides change. Okay, great. If there's any problems or it doesn't move, you just flag me out. I want to make sure to share that the format of what I normally do is I'm a speaker, but I started, many years ago and evolved through the ranks. And so as a speaker, a lot of times I became a speaker because I wanted to learn myself, and I was asking those questions to say, hey, how can we be better, or how can we improve? And so I want to make sure you know it's an interactive session. Feel free to stop me if you want to ask a question, or I do have a slide at the very end for questions. But listen, I've done workshops for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and I know that sometimes it requires us to take a bit of a break. So a question may be the perfect break. So feel free to ask anything that comes to mind. The next thing we're going to work on is on the next slide is who I am, by the way. Not super important, but I have been part of the community for a long time. I actually grew up in Bellevue, Washington, went to Newport High School, went to Bellevue College. I've been fortunate to get to live in a few states: California, Oregon, California, New Jersey, and I got to live in England, UK. I've traveled for work and taught these type of exact sessions in 27 countries and 43 states. I have 3 kids, and they're all adults now, by the way. And I enjoy running and playing chess. All right, I'm going to click on the next slide. Okay. All right, everybody can see the job market reality that we're talking about, this slide that's going on right now. We all know this is happening, so I just put a picture here to kind of represent the fact that, a lot of the leading companies that we've known for years that helped us even start the technology, Intel, that helped us start this technology, Boeing on the platform for planes, have gone through these layoffs, restructuring, and really creating this what we call global stability. So we have to navigate well because companies are prioritizing their operations. They're creating, there are creating some positions where flexibility is there, but the only increased job right now, today, are in certain sectors, and we have to find what those sectors are, and we'll talk about that today. I do also want to say that through the slides, we're going to talk first about people that are looking for jobs in this. That seems like the biggest culprit right now. And then the secondary is we're going to talk about um, anybody who's a hiring manager and looking to hire people or recruiters and what is important to them based on each of these slides today. And so we'll focus on that. So the bad thing is employers are cautious about hiring practices. They see that multi-skilled candidates are probably their best fit right now. They're also investing in short-term contracts, so reduced long-term contracts, and that doesn't bode well for us. That creates more instability. There's a lot of rise on AI specifically and automation. So, serving things like customer service or manufacturing, data entry, these type of roles really are impacting our ability to get in there, but using automation, solving repetitive tasks that sometimes we have jobs for those. And so the area that we're going to focus on, of course, is going to be upskilling. Upskilling will be critical to your focus. Being able to be proactive about learning technologies and the tools and the methods. They're really going to remain relevant, but also help you get cross-trained. And these are the things where I say upskilling is going to be so important for you. And then the ability to adapt, right? This is a changing economy, but one thing that I learned about the economy is it goes up and down. So right now it's not great, but then it's going to come back up. And what are we going to do to prepare now for when it comes back up and then ride that wave? And so that's what we'll focus on here today. So far, any questions? All right. Everybody still with me? Okay. Did you see the slides change? Okay, perfect. So what I want to share with anybody looking for a job is so important. It's something called career clarity. Thank you. Thank you for the thumbs up. Clear uh, clarity in identifying what are your non-negotiables. What do you really need when you're looking for a job? And so we're going to really shift our mindset away from fear, which is what's happening now. We're fearful. We don't want to invest the time because there's a lot of rejection out there. But we're going to change fear to focus, and we're going to look for ways of, instead of thinking about things we don't control, focusing on the things we do control. And here are the 3 attributes that you control today. Everybody controls today, which is your attitude, your skill, and then what's your next move? What's your next plan? So being able to identify those things. Companies today are craving problem solvers. They want team members that think creatively and can think on their feet and maybe even do stuff outside of their job description. And I know a lot of times we talk about, hey, this is my lane. But in this current environment, there's no lanes. There's opportunity if you go out and get it. And so the idea is that it may not be in your job description, but if you show initiative and help in that area, then you become multifaceted for that organization. Innovation actually in this environment starts with initiative. That's what people are looking for. Find those inefficiencies that could help somebody, propose those improvements, and don't just, wait and keep on with what you're doing. Think ahead in the industry that you're focused on. And then lastly, build your brand. Build your brand not just for what you have today, but build your brand specifically for being a solution oriented professional. Positions today are under pressure. Show that you can find calm in the chaos and turn obstacles into opportunities. And let companies want you to be on their team because you're thinking outside of the box. Now, if you're a hiring professional, right? If you're hiring people in this climate, when we talk about clarity, we look for things like motivation, right? What are candidates focused on? Titles are not as important, perks are not as important, but is there stability? Is there growth and alignment and purpose? And those things are what you want to focus on when you're trying to attract candidates to your company and your job. Secondly, if you're hiring in this economy, there's a lot of people. So you have to work a little harder to find the hidden potential, right? Strong candidates may have pivoted from an industry that is not doing so well. However, if you focus on transferable skills, you may see the diamond in the rough in somebody that you didn't expect to have the skills that you were looking for. So look for those hidden treasures, what we call hidden potential. Okay, any questions on that so far? Okay. Okay, so things that are focused on right now are your core values, right? What purpose, flexibility, creativity, and growth are there if you're looking for a job, right? These are the values that are your own internal compass. And then identify what you should leave behind. There's a lot of chatter out there. There's a lot of maybe there could be AI jobs out there, right? You just don't know. So you really have to determine what habits, what roles, what environments that no longer serve you well and recognize what to walk away from and where to spend your time. You can only do that though if you visualize your future, where you want to be and what lifestyle that you want and get specific. Clarity fuels motivation and helps you align every decision that you make. And then reduce the noise. Try to stay on focus, but reduce noise where things can be of distraction or rejections can, impact your emotion or misalignment when you go to that interview. It's not the right one. These are the things that are going to burn you out. So clarity brings focus and will drive your progression. And then sometimes you're going to have to career pivot. You want to look for those things where the industry or that job is better, that opportunity fits me better. And maybe I should move towards that instead of what I was thinking in the future or what my past would have been. And so change your priorities if you need to. Don't be afraid to evolve because that's okay as well. Okay. Now, for my hiring professionals, listen, if you're out there looking for talent, when we talk about that clarity, we really are talking about when people are clear, pay attention to that because aligned expectations equals a better fit. There's no question that candidates that know what they want are more likely to be aligned with the company's mission, with the job's requirements, with that company's culture. And that is a secret to look for, because when you see somebody aligned, that gives you the indication that this might be the right person. And also, when you see candidates focused on their career path, right, their career growth path, it really shows that they have a proactivity about them and their development on their career, but also it makes it easier to mentor them and promote them once you pull them aboard. So these are hidden treasures that will help you find those candidates focusing on the growth paths when you hear them talk about, their experience. Okay, we're doing good so far. Give me a thumbs up. All right. I just changed the slides again. We're on Build Your Brand. All right. Excellent. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. We're on Build Your Brand. And listen, this is a key tool. Building your brand is something you want to focus on, because your brand, think of it as your story. Make your story memorable, right? It should reflect your unique journey, highlight your strengths. Listen, if I'm looking for a job, I also want to share in my brand my skills and value and passion. These are the things that set you apart. And the goal here for your brand is it should connect your past to your future goals. And remember, your future goals aren't just everything you want. In the context of trying to get a job, the future plan should include where you're going to or where you're proposing to go to. So make that story memorable. Be consistent across all platforms. This is one thing that took me a long time to get. Being able to, for instance, have my LinkedIn and my Indeed, my Monster.com and my Glassdoor and my email signature. Listen, for anybody who's looking at you for a job, consistency builds trust. Use the same tone, the same keywords. Align your professional identity to what you want said about you, and that helps build that brand. Show, don't just tell, right? You can say, hey, I'm a leader and this is what I do, but you can back it up with examples by sharing the project results. Or maybe the project failed, but here's your lessons learned, and or use testimonials, but demonstrate the impact that you make for that particular job, which could be for that particular company that you're talking to. Optimize your online presence. Make sure that it has, thank you. Make sure that it has all of your ability to see who you are, polish it up, keep it up to date, reflect your goals and achievements for the things that you want. And then don't be afraid to let your brand evolve. Listen, this is so important, because a lot of times we put our brand out there and it stays out there. And then, 10 years later, right? Because we had a job for 5 and then we had another job for 3 and so on. So listen, it's okay to get out there and update your brand. Most important to know that when people are looking at you and your brand, authenticity builds clarity, and that stands out for anybody helping people find a job. So let your brand evolve, build your brand, and make it memorable. And so if I'm hiring, let's go from that standpoint. Listen, sometimes it seems like that's a better standpoint to be in the hiring position, although it has its own issues too. And when I'm hiring, brand to me signals that somebody is ready, right? Those candidates, they craft a strong personal brand. They usually come with clarity and confidence and communication skills. Most importantly, all 3 of those are immediately able to be transferable into the workplace. So look for those. And when you're looking for that, the great part about uh, checking out people's brand is you actually can see what they stand for. And that sometimes is important. Maybe the job is in a nonprofit. Listen, what people stand for has a lot to do with their motivation. So if I'm a recruiter, talent management, or a hiring manager, I want to look for ways to see what people stand for. I'm going to do that by seeing what their brand is, and a well-built brand gives insight into your values, your strengths, and how you approach work. And that's absolutely key when you're trying to hire the right person. Okay, we're going to hit the next slide. Tell me if you see the slide change here real quick. Yeah,
I have a question for
absolutely.
the LinkedIn slide
Okay,
topic.
great. Yep.
I come from a background of a lot of contract work as
Yes.
a software consultant. And with the way that the advice that I've been receiving says to customize every resume or application, cover letter, everything to every job that you're applying to.
Right.
And I feel like I struggle between how much information should be on my LinkedIn profile or any other profile for that matter that's statically online. How much should be on that profile versus how much is on the resume? How much, what level of detail?
Yeah.
Because, you know, if you're saying something a little bit different to highlight different skills depending on the job, right? Then how much of it do I put online statically or, you know, that's there for a while?
By the way, that's an excellent question because I haven't talked about this yet, but I spent some time 9 months laid off for um, unplanned situation. But here's the deal. That is a tricky question, right? Because we're trying to build consistency across these online platforms. So how do we then tailor our resume, right? Because at the time I had 5 different type of jobs I was going for, and I could tailor them every time I had a job for that industry. I had the base, and then I could tailor it to what that job was looking for. However, as you noticed in your situation, that's not going to work very well to build consistency across LinkedIn and all those other tools. So here is what I recommend. If you're in a situation where you're looking for a job, it's going to be hard to completely build your brand in the online presence on all, let's just take my example, on all 5 different type of jobs. So I wiped out all of my experience and I kept only the last job that I had. So that way I could tailor everything from before the last job that I had. So now my Indeed, my Glassdoor, my LinkedIn, or monster.com, everybody only just had one job. And that allowed me then to send in my resume that was tailored for everything else. Now, as soon as I finally got a job, I went back and added all my stuff again. but the way to do it is, and this is on one of the slides that we'll talk about, be concise. If you are looking and you're should be trying to get into any area that you feel strong in, which is multiple industries, then you're going to have to limit what you share in your brand for a period of time. If you're just in one industry, then you can, I think in the resume we'll talk about it 7 years back. But yeah, so if you're in a situation where you're doing multiple messages, multiple tailored functions, then on your online profile, you'll just leave your last job. You won't leave a lot of detail of what that job is. You'll just mostly have your title and the dates out there, leaving you the opportunity to explain what that job is in your tailored environment. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Listen, we got to help each other. That's a darn good question. So thank you for asking. Okay. I just changed slides. Everybody see the skill stacking slide? Give me a thumbs up if you see it. Okay, great. So skill stack. Listen, this is so important because thank you for all the thumbs up. You guys are doing great. Okay. In this focus, in this type of industry, it really is about trying to gain as much knowledge as possible, right? So I want you to think in terms of skills, not just the roles, right? Job titles change. Skills are transferable. So focus on what you do well. Maybe it's project management, communication, data analysis, or critical thinking. But most importantly, when you talk about them in how skills evolves and then helps to solve problems across those industries that you're focused on. I would also recommend to combine technical and human skills. Listen, maybe you're a coder or you're in budgeting or you're doing cloud tools, but you want to add things like soft skills, like maybe leadership or adaptability or emotional intelligence, because that combo makes you versatile and more valuable for somebody to hire you. Um, and then, of course, anytime you're talking or communicating or skill stacking, I want you to think about the skills that you're working on and how they solve real business problems, right? Why are you doing the skill in the first place? Well, what business problem does it solve? Because then when you're on an interview or when you're building your resume, you're going to talk from the standpoint of, hey, I picked that on purpose because it solves this skill, right? Have a plan behind the reason for doing the skills instead of just picking an arbitrary skill and hoping that it'll be great. Know that it solves a business problem. Think of your skill stack as your story, your resume, your LinkedIn, your interviews. Here's the thing that differs, even from that last question we talked about, which is in your skills on your resume or in your skills in your LinkedIn or any of your online profiles. Listen, that could tell a story by itself. So if you only have one job with experience, your last job with that experience, because you're tailoring your resume to send into jobs, then use the skill stack as your story and have that combination deliver information that shows the rare things that you do, how relevant you are, and how hard it really took you to get to this place by having these skills. That's a story in itself. Now, from a hiring standpoint, if I'm a recruiter or I'm working for a company or maybe talent management, I really focus and I recommend you look for the skill stacking people, right? Because they're typically problem solvers, right? They are what I just shared a second ago. They're actually picking that skill for a reason. They have a need, they have a desire, or they've seen in this industry that AI is the thing. And because of that, I'm going to learn that skill. And so skill stackers can pivot across functions, can collaborate across teams, and can innovate because they connect the dots where other people don't. They also, which is a unique skill, if you see somebody that's a skill stacker when you're in your recruiting process, they really do fill gaps creatively. Whereas, like for instance, somebody that has technical expertise and communication skills, they can bridge departments and elevate the project execution. So being able to not just see the skills, but see that the skills overall, and if they fill a gap in a particular job you have, right? There's not very many jobs, so it's got to have all these things. Skills may be the tool as a recruiter to help you. All right, any questions on that one? Okay, I just changed the slides. Give me a thumbs up if you see it. We're talking about targeted job search right now, which is so key, right? Everybody, by the way, you definitely give me a thumbs up if you feel like, a targeted job search is something that you feel is important, because I will tell you this, it is super important. Yep, thank you. Yep, I appreciate it. That's awesome. Well, I want you to think when you talk about, jobs, quality over quantity in every application. Um, you know, Even on the screen that you're seeing, it says avoid spray and pray. Listen, I always talk about, have you ever painted a wall? Okay. And have you ever taken a paintbrush and splattered the wall and you see the paint go everywhere? That's basically exactly what that is, right? You're throwing it against the wall and there's many different dots over there, and not one dot is big enough or have all the details that you really need. You're just getting your resume out there. But we've found that that doesn't work very well. And I can tell you, for instance, it didn't. I was laid off in 2017 after working for 34 years. I started when I was 9. And as part of that, I really found that I would every Sunday send out 20 resumes to people I don't even know and jobs that, was a little bit of a stretch. And man, I got tired. I got tired after 9 months. I was really tired of that. And so you'll burn yourself out. You want to focus on really the areas that are important to you. Think like a recruiter. And what a recruiter does is they skill for alignment. So the jobs that you're looking for, focus on that. Find the type of jobs that enable you to be motivated, because employers can spot generic applications instantly. And of course, they're the first resumes to get filtered out, right? So you need to show customization of your information because it shows genuine interest and effort. Anybody that's a recruiter sees that, knows that you're really serious about that job. Focus beats frustration. Like I said, if you do the paint splatter on the wall, you're going to just get frustrated because it's going to seem like, man, I'm putting so much effort in. But really focus there on what job that you're looking for. Narrow your target, go deep, research, network, and apply with clarity. Make every interaction count. Listen, from a LinkedIn message with a question to people following up on your resume. Every time you talk to somebody or have an interaction, make it count. Use all the professionalism that you would use if you were going to something super important. And then prep yourself. I mean, one of the things that I like to share people is when you're doing your job targeted search, make sure that you know the company, you know the role, and that you're a great fit. Because when that happens and somebody that's hiring sees your information, listen, that's going to stand out 90% from all other applicants when you know and you interact great. And then the thing I didn't do when I was laid off, which I think is so important, thank you, um, is track, reflect, and adjust. I did not do this. As you already know, I did the paint splatter, right? And that didn't work. And so, what you should do when you do your targeted job searches and you apply, you should track and be intentional about that job search process. So that way, when you track your efforts, you bring results, and that way it enables you to say, okay, well, this one worked well. I got an interview when I did it this way. All over here, the splatter, there was nothing. And so track, reflect on it, and then adjust. Adjust your strategy based on what is actually working, not just what feels comfortable. And that's what I didn't do when I was looking for a job. It was comfortable just to easily send out 20 resumes a weekend, but I wasn't tracking which ones worked well. And so I was in a situation where I was frustrated. Now, from a hiring standpoint, when I see candidates, what you want to look for is anybody that does do a targeted search, they've done their homework. There's no question these candidates typically understand your company, understand that role, and most importantly, you can start going straight to questions to ask things like, how can you contribute, right? Because they're going to answer those questions. They specifically targeted your company, and that takes you to a different level in the interview. So you should be looking for people who are doing targeted searches because it's going to save you time. It also is going to give you a higher engagement and lower turnover. These people that are doing targeted searches tend to stay at the company, right? They're intentional applicants. They want that organization for a specific reason. Your job as a recruiting entity or a hiring manager is to find out what those reasons are. Why does Tony want to work here, right? But seeing the targeted search, I already have a good idea that they've done their homework. Now it's time to find out why. And then that usually leads to a greater commitment and job satisfaction, which if you're in human resources, that's what we call a win-win. Okay, I just changed to the networking strategy. Give me a thumbs up if you see the slides change. All right, well, we're going to talk about, okay, yeah, question. Harrison? Hey.
Oh, sorry. I was meant to give a thumbs up.
Okay, no problem, no problem. Listen, this is no problem. Okay, great. Well, here, if I had to tell you anything whatsoever, it's networking strategy all the way. Remember, I shared with you that in 2017, I lost my job after 34 years. I may have been a 12-year-old employee, but the most important thing is I did. I lost my job, and it took me 9 months to find a job. I did the splatter method, right, which did not work. I didn't do a lot of targeted searches, but I did a few of those, and none of it worked. What actually ended up happening is somebody who I'd worked for before had heard through the grapevine that I was still looking for a job, and they had a similar job I've done in the past. And so then they called me up out of the blue and said, "Hey, Tony, can you come check this out? I think I may have something." Now, I've got a house and three kids, a family, and a dog, cats, and, a whole farm here, if you will. And so I was really, after 9 months, pretty, fearful of not getting a job for even longer. But luckily, my networking skills worked. See, I had stayed connected with that person even after I left. Not only did I stay connected with that person, while I was working there, I never burnt my bridges. So I've actually been hired by people who knew me from the past a lot, even though a lot of times when I work, sometimes I don't necessarily get along with everybody, right? We don't have to be buddies. I have to be professional. But by doing that, I don't burn my bridges, and people then think of me if they have a need. And that's what you want. You want to focus on a networking strategy where people think of you when they have a need. Now, this is not an easy mind shift. This is not done overnight. And it's also not just about asking somebody for a job. It is really about connecting. Networking is about getting unfocused or removed from thinking that there's a desperate need for a job, and more of building a connection with people who share the same interests and operate in the same targeted field. Matter of fact, when I'm building that network, I'm going to ask questions. I'm not just going to pitch myself. I can do that. I'm going to approach conversations with curiosity. I'm going to find out about their career journey. I'm going to find out about the challenges that they've faced and why do they love working there. This builds the rapport and shows you value their experience. Be a giver, not just a taker. It's really important to look for ways to be helpful, whether it's sharing an article, it could be on LinkedIn, or sharing a response, or offering a skill, or making an introduction. Being able to actually nurture relationships, it builds trust over time, and it shows that, hey, they'll think about you because you've helped them, not because you're always coming to ask them for a job. Stay visible, stay valuable. Engage in platforms. Listen, LinkedIn is the best tool to stay engaged in if you're looking for a job. And so, what you want to do is, instead of just going to an email and sending it to a buddy, or seeing a job at that company and then sending an email to somebody that you know or is a friend of a friend, what you really want to do is you want to be able to comment on people's posts. And I know this is kind of hard, sometimes even congratulate people when they get jobs, which is totally tough when you're looking for a job, but it's so important to be able to be present, be visible without sounding desperate like you need a job. So post your insights on a topic, congratulate others on their achievements. It really keeps you in top of mind without asking for anything. Follow up and nurture those relationships. One of the customers I had was the Pittsburgh Pirates. And I recall, to nurture that relationship, I basically would check in with them every month. I implemented them, and once a year I went out for training, but once a month I would send a note to the HR director. She's still, matter of fact, I have a reference right behind from when I worked there, a reference letter from her. But what I did was I actually just once a month I saw an article about the Pittsburgh Pirates, or I saw an article about baseball, but I would come up with ways to share something, an update, to just enable me to stay in touch. Now, many times she would reply and say, "How's the family? How are the kids doing?" And I talk, "Okay, how's your family doing?" And she flew through Seattle once, and we met for coffee. Listen, in my town instead of in Pittsburgh where I used to go, nurturing the relationship ultimately is the win. You want to be able to use comments, use your relationships, work with people, build something, because you don't know who is going to come and ask you for your help down the road. So nurture and follow up. Now, from a hiring standpoint, listen, one of the things I like about people who understand networking is it really does show that they understand relationship building. And if that's part of the job, I usually hire customer service people, and that's usually part of the job. I love that. It really is an indicator of their ability to network and thrive in a collaborative environment and bring strong interpersonal skills as part of that dynamic team. And that I want. So when I'm in the hiring process, this is key. The other two are important as well, but that's probably the biggest one, is that they'll understand how to nurture relationships. But they will also stay informed and be resourceful. But here's the best one. They will be proactive. Listen, if you're hiring people and you see this networking, the first thing that should trigger in your mind is they are proactive, not passive. They strategically network, which shows initiative. And the candidates are not waiting for opportunities to be dropped in their lap. They're going out and creating opportunities. And that is key. I know if I'm a recruiter and I see Tony and he's responding to me on a comment in LinkedIn on a topic, and I say, "Oh yeah, Tony, you're so right about that." Guess what? Tomorrow a job comes up that Tony's looking for, and I'm like, "Okay, oh my gosh, Tony and I just talked about that topic." So again, be intentional, be proactive, don't be passive. Use networking as a key strategy for finding jobs. That's what I did, and I found a job. Okay. Any questions on networking? Okay. And we're going to get to some meat and gravy here. Tell me if you see the next slide here, resumes and cover letters. Give me a thumbs up if you see it. What we're going to talk about now is also key, right? I want you to think of, your resume and your cover letter, not just as words. I want you to think of it as uh, leading with impact, not just duties. Let me know do you have any questions? Let me know if you have any questions. Okay. Leading with impact, not just duties, right? By the way,
My
recruiters,
question? Sorry, I don't mean to cut you
yeah,
off.
absolutely.
Yeah, sorry, I'm like here late because it's been a really long couple days.
No problem. No
I
problem.
yeah, so my question is, because this happened to me recently,
Yeah. Yeah.
still haven't responded to this person because I don't know like if it's appropriate or not. But one of my clients in my current job,
Yeah.
so I'm not a social worker, but that's a lot of what I do. I'm like a case manager, social worker role.
Right.
So somebody who attended one of the presentations for my job, like a client's person, reached out to me on LinkedIn. Is it appropriate for me to still connect with them, or how would you navigate that?
And that was your past job, did you say?
No, for my current one.
Oh,
It's
for
like
your
kind
current
of
job.
current job.
Um, so um, are you in a manager? What kind of position are you in?
So I work as it's not a manager position. It's like I guess like a regular hourly employee
Okay.
position in a
Okay.
nonprofit organization.
And by the way, I'm going to answer your question, I promise. But just to make sure I have the right context, do you like that person? Did you guys get along?
So I just met him once. We had a very awesome like conversation in the presentation because it was like a so it was one of the presentations I do on disability is diversity, and it's
Okay.
pretty much, I guess, like talking about DEI, but specifically focusing on disability, right?
Right. Right.
I don't want to get too into the details because I don't want to take up too much space, but I
Yeah.
liked
That's good.
what he and I ended up talking about in the Q&A session, and it's like we had different points of view, but
Yeah.
we were
Yeah.
able to somehow like understand each other when it comes to
Yeah.
like navigating how do we um, understand each other when we might unintentionally cause harm to each other. It was
Right.
something like that that we connected on.
That's wonderful. So, and that, by the way, is part of DEI anyway. That's another course that I teach as well. But, DEI is about listening to people with different perspectives. My
Yeah.
recommendation in that situation is, yeah, it definitely does no harm. Should I choose to link up with people? And it's sometimes a tough question. I'm in a management role, and a lot of times I won't connect to people unless, especially like teams that I manage, unless they want to connect with me, right? I don't want
Mhm.
to, I don't want to be an intrusive manager in their life unless they feel that, they want that. But
Mhm.
here's the thing about LinkedIn. Let's say that it goes crazy. You connect with him and now he's chattering some crazy stuff. Then you just, change that connection, right? Kind of like Facebook. But in general, your LinkedIn is part of your brand. And
Mhm.
if he brings some good conversation to some good topics, especially from a different point of view, which is part of the DEI initiatives usually, then I would say that would be a good contact to have. So
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I guess I just wasn't sure because like I often think about like the inherent power dynamic that comes with me being like a professional staff and
that's
then this
right.
person being like a client who's like
Yeah,
relying on our services, if that makes sense. So that's why I wasn't
yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
Um,
And I have both in my LinkedIn. I have about 6,000 connected to me in LinkedIn, but they're clients, staff. Matter of fact, I
mm,
had a side job for a while, so some past people that were my customers, and I have past employers part of my LinkedIn. The main thing is if there's value that they can bring to you, and you can have a good conversation, and most importantly, that conversation could help somebody else, then I think that's a great connection. So
okay. Thank you so much.
you're welcome. Absolutely. So we're going to focus on our resume and cover letter. We talked about this earlier. We're not going to splatter. We're going to do targeted searches, which means that we got to customize our resume. And when you customize it, I want you to think about, employers already know most job titles. So instead of listing responsibilities, list results like this one. I increased sales by 30%. You can even improve that by saying I increased sales by 30% by um, you know, targeting specific customers in the region that generated the most revenue. And so now, by the way, I'm sharing this with you, and on the next slide, I've got some advice on keywords and other tools. I want you to know you can get all of this now from the free Chat GPT. So if you want to say how to build, those words so that you could talk about duties, then we'll talk about that here in a couple of slides. But you just use Chat GPT for free. Tailor your role every time. We talked about this. Align your skills, your experiences. Use keywords, right? Because listen, your resume is going to go from your computer, my computer here, and then it's going to go into some AI system that's filtering it. And so you need to have the keywords. And so we'll talk about that. But keywords for the things that the company's looking for because you want to speak the language of that company and that job. And then less is more. Be concise, focus on the most relevant and impressive information, and move anything that's super important to the top. Basically, two strong tailored bullet points are way better than five vague ones. And so keep it concise. And then put the most relevant stuff at the top, and then show how you solve problems. Don't just show that what your title does and the description of your duties. Recruiters know what those duties are based on the job title. But what did you do? And how did you solve it? And how did it impact that company from what you did? Now that recruiters do not know. Now, if we're on the hiring side, I'm a hiring manager and I'm focused on looking at the resume, right? And cover letter. First of all, like I said earlier, I'm going to immediately identify people that are generic versus people that aren't. but I'm definitely going to see what kind of communication skills somebody has. And most importantly, what the resume should be telling me, and what I'm going to look for is what is the story about this person? What's Tony's story? I want to see that, and that's what I should see in that resume and cover letter. All right. Yep. David?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, shoot. So I have a question. So
Yeah.
like when we're tailoring our resume and we have the tools like ChatGPT to kind of summarize like all the bullet points or whatever we have put on there, right?
Yeah.
So I come from an IT background, so I have like a multifaceted tool set. How do I identify like, the bullet points to put in like each one of those jobs that I have? Because again, like it's a lot of skills. And
Yes.
then like trying to apply to like a company where they're looking for A, B, C, D with keywords, X, Y, Z. It's kind of hard to determine like what should go out there without muddling the story, for lack of a better word.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah. so
Yeah.
so here's the thing. So remember I told you I was working since I was 12. There may be a fib factor in there somewhere. Um, I started my career in 91, so I unfortunately I have a lot of experience, which is good but also can be bad, because if and this is what I learned in that 9 months, if I share too much, then it just goes right over somebody, right? Because, by the way, I want to make sure everybody knows, typically the people that are looking at resumes and cover letters, they're HR generalists for the most part, which have been in that job anywhere from 6 months to 3 years on average. So our goal, and by the way, you need them. I mean, let me make sure you understand. You need them because they're the ones who are going to pitch you to the hiring manager, right? That's how the process works. And so what you'll want to do is you want to find out for that job exactly what are the key attributes to that job and what are the skills that are needed for that attribute. And then you're going to have to go through and prioritize what you have. And so that's what I did. I prioritized what I had. The first thing I did was I got it down to 1 page. And that's super hard. I could have 3 pages with as many years of experience that I have. But I had to pick for the customization of the resume and cover letter what was most important for that particular job and not put anything else that kind of distracted from that focus. Once I did that, then I went to ChatGPT and I said, turn it into 1 page because I still got it to only two. And so once ChatGPT got it to 2 pages, then I could remove or add a few things, but I had it to where that resume was perfectly converted and customized for that particular job. The real answer, David, to your question is you're going to have to take a lot of stuff off of it. And that's the toughest part, what to take off. And the answer to that is what's in the job description. What are the top 3 to 4 things that job screams that it needs? And you need to look at your stuff and you need to extract just those, and those are the only vision that you want to have. Does that help?
I mean, it does, because like again, like it goes back to the resume regurgitation. I forgot what you called it, the splat and spray or whatever.
Yeah, the splatter.
Yeah, it's just hard because like again, like using my Excel as an example, trying to fill in like system administrator roles,
Mhm.
like network engineering roles, things like that.
That's right.
It's just kind of hard because it's just have a lot of skills, and then it got to the point where it's like, okay, have I need like more certifications or whatever to fulfill that role, or try to
That's right.
compensate for one or the other. So
Yeah. So one way you could do that, David. This is a great topic. By the way, there are resume helpers too. Just if you need, there's a lot of, especially online, you could just send your resume and they'll do it for $20. But most importantly, what I do also is I take a lot of that stuff that's in the description down below that really made my resume too big. and I turn those into skills that I have, and I put that at the top of my resume. So I may have a lot of skills at the top that are key words for things that would have normally been a bullet point or a written sentence, because as soon as it goes through the AI tool, that's the applicant tracking system, you just need those keywords to be seen there, and then to get to a place where you could talk to somebody. See, once you actually get to talk to somebody, then all of the information that you want to share is relevant by answering questions. But in the very beginning, it's like fishing, right? You're gonna have a fishing, and you're gonna have one little bait on there. You're not gonna have your whole 3 pages of bait. And so you're just trying to get to a place where somebody can talk to you, and then you can explain the rest of the details. So maybe instead of having it in the description, you use the keywords to help you with a lot of the experiences that you have. Does that help?
Yeah, it helps. It gives me ideas. Yeah, thanks, man. If
Absolutely.
anything, if you can give the list of recommended resume sites, I'll be more than happy to look at that. So
Yeah, yeah. Listen, the biggest one is Glassdoor, because obviously it tells you, the salaries for
yeah,
the jobs you're looking for, and they're vetted, right?
yeah.
Some of the Indeed sites are not vetted, and so I've used Monster before, but a lot of times that's going away. And of course, the biggest one today, so these are my three, is going to be LinkedIn. LinkedIn does great for jobs. They're usually vetted pretty well. And so those are the three areas that I would recommend. All right.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Hi, Dia.
Oh, it's Di, actually.
Di. Hi.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Just a quick question, like, because now you're talking about companies using AI for resumes.
Yeah.
Is that like the new ATS or is it
So
different?
so this is actually, no, this has been going on for a long time. So when I taught HR and HR directors and recruiters and talent management, because I used to deploy those human resources systems, I trained people on how to use their applicant tracking system to filter resumes. And so that was in 2015. So people have been doing this for years. They also have now additional tools. We didn't have it back then. We had to manually search LinkedIn. We had to manually search Facebook or whatever sites that they felt in social media was important. But now they can just press a button and just put a check mark into the systems that they want. So a lot of what they do in human resources is now automated. But the first step is, as soon as you send your resume in, it goes into an applicant tracking system to extract your data and put it into a spreadsheet so that the HR generalist can look at your information and then see if you're a good fit. But it makes the determination if you're a good fit, which is why I tell everybody, think about that being the first step, because this is the majority of the time what recruiters are using. Does that help?
Yeah, it is. I was just like nodding. I was like, all right.
Okay. Okay. Great. Great. So the last thing on resume, yeah, definitely show how you solve problems. I'm going to go to the next slide, which is just a couple of a little bit of information here. You can take a print screen of it. This is an exact example of the keywords that you should use. I just did this right before this session. I did a post on ChatGPT, and I said, give me the keywords for a project manager. And these are the keywords that come up. Now, first of all, you're not going to use every keyword in your resume, right? But you can go to ChatGPT for that job you're looking for and tell me, hey, what are the keywords for this job? And then you can just take these words to add to your resume. So when it has to, the first step, go through the applicant tracking system, it can say, hey, this person knows Confluence and we use this. Oh, this person, we're an ITEL shop in our methodology. And oh, they manage time management. So you can use ChatGPT to find out keywords and then extract the ones that help frame your message. Okay. And then we talked about earlier, you want to change your resume from being, just the duties into how you your impact is. And so at the very top, you see for an IT project manager, manage software implementation project, oversaw cross project. This is the normal C. Matter of fact, most of the resumes that come through are just like this. But down below, which I just went to ChatGPT and I said, give me a resume that is just duties versus a resume that gives me the impact that I bring. And look at even just the first one, led 15 implementation across 3 industries, delivering project on average 22% of the schedule ahead. And so in project management, by the way, whatever job you're looking for, that's what you got to find out. In project management, being ahead of schedule is a key attribute for somebody that's really successful. So again, you can use ChatGPT to speed things up. Make sure you have the right keywords and make sure you're writing your descriptions with a concise, but also how you impact that job. Okay, we're gonna go to, I see we're getting a little bit behind. Sorry about that. So I'm gonna hit just a couple of things here real quick. I want you to know this is probably the biggest thing if you could get to this stage, right? All those other things lead to this stage. Every stage you have to be focused on and track, but interviewing is key. And if you don't know how to interview or don't have a methodology, I want you to think about the most common methodology, which is called STAR, the STAR method, which talks about describing the context or background of your example, the situation that's going on. And then focused on task, explain the specific challenges, responsibilities that you faced. And then what action? Detail the exact steps. Number one thing that recruiters and hiring managers look for is hearing the process in somebody's mind. So detail the steps so that they can see and from your words how you can solve a problem. And then results, like on that last slide, 22%. They were ahead of schedule on the project management. So share the outcome and how you increased that ability for that particular company. And so I also tell people to, practice. Have 3 to 5 stories that help solve something. When I was looking for a job, I took all of the responsibilities and I put stories next to 3 to 5 stories next to pieces of the responsibility. So when that question came up, I didn't just say, yes, I'm very good at leading teams. I actually said, well, when I led my team last, we had many problems, and this is what we did. And that's what you're looking for, because a story is, people remember that. People remember a story. Will they remember that you did really good by saying, I did really good? No, they won't remember that, but they'll remember your story. Yeah, Tony, he told me that story. Oh gosh, it was so funny, but oh my gosh, he knows his stuff. And so the story is a quick way to get to the next step. And so, listen, I've now been working a long time. Every time I interview, I try to have a story for every responsibility. But again, I couldn't do that in 1991 when I started. I only had 2 or 3 stories, and that's what you need. Think of 3 to 5 stories. And then confidence. You need confidence if you're going to be in an interview. And sometimes we're introverts. We don't have confidence. We haven't done that job. So guess what? Practice. Just like I practiced this today before I got on this session. Practice interviewing with a friend. Practice interviewing with a mentor. Get feedback on your practice. Listen, the more time you practice before you go on an interview, when you're there, you're automatically going to show how you're confident, you're comfortable, and most importantly, that you have clarity in why you're there to interview. And that's what the hiring managers are looking for. All right, I'm going to stop there. I see we're at 5:30, and I just want to be cognizant of time. Um, I do have a couple extra slides. Yeah, yeah, Harrison, I see you got your hand up.
Well, just only one quick question. Let's just say that you, as a fresh graduate, you don't really have a lot of experience. Um, so how could I build a profile, build my resume that looks adequate enough? and can stand in competition with people with more experience?
That's a great question. By the way, I've got three adult children, and so I help my daughter and son a lot on this question. Listen, when we think of experience, we automatically think about a job. We automatically think about a job. When you think about experience, I want you to think about anything that you've done. So here's Tony in 1991, right? I didn't have a professional organization. I had only worked for one job, but you know what? I had experience doing work, and that was in a volunteer capacity. So I was coaching for my past high school. And so I used everything that I had and I showed that as experience. And that's what garnered me to get my first job. It wasn't all five different jobs on my resume because I didn't have that. I had one place I worked. And so based on that, but I did add under experience, the volunteer work I did to help people enroll into the sports, the coaching that I provided to help keep the team motivated and keep up to date with the best practices for how to do those sports. And so I found other mechanisms to prove and share and have a story about experiences that not necessarily did I get a paycheck for. Does that help?
Yeah, so basically going back to the management skills and the people skills, emphasizing that given like sufficient training, you can bring those qualities to the work, something like that.
Exactly. Exactly. And again, I'm going to go back to the storytelling. If you share that in a story, they're not going to say in their mind at all, oh man, I wonder if he was employed. They're not going to care about that. They're looking for the skill. And if there's one thing I want everybody to remember on here is you don't have to have everything in your description. You also need to focus on what skills do you have and how you got them may not be as important. All right. Does that help?
Yep, totally. Thank you,
Okay.
Tony.
Yeah, no problem.
Tony, thank you for your presentation for a long time. Just
Thank
I
you.
want to share the one trend here. Yesterday, I got a message from one of a senior engineer who are interviewing the future employee. Then he asked me, hey, how you can handle this AI issues? They found 50% of interview remotely. Then they used AI tools. And then they detected the interviewers are using AI tools. Okay,
Right.
I don't know how they detected it there. Then he asked me, I think this problem will happen in academia. Then how do you have, what kind of things are you doing? So now AI tools are everywhere. Then even students in the middle of an interview, then they are using AI tools to answer their question. It can be technical question, it can be anything. So
That's right.
how kind of a recommendation do you want to give to the next, this AI generation future employee?
So here's what I recommend. Use AI. So because the you're right. A lot of people are using AI as part of their filtering system, which is good and bad. But then you can use the AI for the same thing. And here's my example. I started teaching cybersecurity in January. And one of the things that I now teach, right? I had to build this curriculum. One of the things I now teach is there's people that do really good in cybersecurity and there's people that do bad on cybersecurity. And the funny thing is, both of those people are using AI. So you're going to be working on your resume and your cover letter and how to get better interviewing techniques. So you go to ChatGPT, and every stage of the process, you share what you're doing, and then you let AI give you some recommendations. And then when it goes through their applicant tracking systems and all their AI tools, it's speaking the same language. And so,
Maybe they are saying in the middle of an interview they are using. That was
yeah,
looks like a negative side of a complaint,
right.
not preparing for document. So actually, when they have an interview, then they asking question. Then I think interviewee use the tools. Then they recognize those things. Then
Ah,
yeah, that's the for preparing for this one. I agree with that. But I think in the middle of that very dangerous
yes,
because interviewer think you don't have your essence. Yeah.
exactly. So you're exactly right about that. And that's where two things come into play. Know that job description and the requirements for that job. Have it written down. Identify stories in that job description that you can call out and talk on and memorize it. So you're going to, like for this, I practiced for 2 weeks. But for an interview that I want to get, maybe I practice for 3 weeks. But practice it so it becomes in a memory associated to a particular job duty. And that way, now you don't have to be into a situation where you got to go to a system and, where they're going to identify, he doesn't really know what he's talking about. This sounds like a standard answer. It really, you have to invest is what the answer is. And it's time. But if you invest and you get the right thing across, some stories that people feel you're authentic, it's going to always work. So
Okay.
it's in the preparation. It's in the
Thank
preparation.
you. I think Dai has a question. Okay, let me stop here. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, Doug.
Maybe this was covered already since I came super late. But it was about the one of the previous slides you showed about the impact driven resume versus like the more general detailed resume.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah, so I just want to understand more like how do I work with like my supervisor or whoever I work closely with to like have that impact driven resume for like my current job. So for
Right.
example, in my current job, we use Salesforce a lot.
Mm,
And we use that to submit like what's called client case meeting notes, like
right.
notes on like the meetings we've had. Like it has a record of all the clients I've worked with, all that kind of stuff. So is that something I could use to write about my impacts in my current org, or is there like some policy usually in like organizations where that's not allowed? I'm not exactly sure.
No, you definitely can use that.
Okay.
Here's the thing. You're going to use it. Just think of when you use something, you're using it as a template, really, as a guide, right? It may give you some indication of things that you can include, but then you're gonna go in and adjust the answer a little bit to suit
Hmm.
exactly why you're customizing it.
Hmm.
So I love those type of tools because the idea is that you don't start from scratch. That's why that's really cool, but you definitely need to make sure it's customized so that way you can take that as a foundation and just improve upon it to make it yours, brand it your way, brand it with your words and your information. But maybe some of the sentences you just have to change a couple of things.
I see. I see. Okay, that really helps a lot. And I think something else, I don't know if you can like speak to this or not, or anybody else can, but I
Yeah.
know I feel like in a lot of ways in my current job, I have like a privilege to be able to work with my supervisor to like uh use like Salesforce to like create those bullet points of like what is the specific impact on like my clients, right? And that's
Yeah, right,
because her and I we've developed like a positive, trusting relationship. But I know that's
right.
not the case in like all workplaces, right? Like some
Yeah,
workplaces it's really different, and the relationship between the employer and supervisor is really like strained, or
straight.
there's like tension or stuff
Right.
like that. So I don't know if you have any like recs on like what to do if somebody in this like group or anybody else who's trying to do the impacts driven resume wants to do that, but they're in a workplace where there might be just a lot of tension in the workplace, if that makes sense.
Right. So are you saying like the timing to do it is wrong, or are you saying that there may be rules that what they're pulling up
I
on
think
that
what I'm
system?
getting,
Yeah.
sorry. I think what I'm getting more into is like certain workplaces where, because I've experienced this personally. I've
Yeah.
experienced this where I've been in workplaces where I felt psychologically unsafe
Right.
and I didn't even feel safe or comfortable with like my supervisor or like just the work environment. So I just wonder like how does one go about writing their impacts driven bullet points on that job when there's
Yeah.
that situation going on of psychological unsafety?
But so great question, by the way, because we always kind of feel like, somebody's looking over our shoulder, right? And, shame on you, kind of situation. And that pressure, I just don't like that. And two things I would do. I definitely would use my lunch um, time so that way I could, feel less like I'm doing something wrong. But for the most part, when I did resumes, I always tried to do them at home if I could. Now, sometimes that's not possible, but sometimes it is. But the main thing is if I can try, because then I get into a situation to customize it during the day. I just have to change a few things. So I have a template. And I just change. So I'm going to do that at lunch, and it's not going to be beautiful because I'm on my phone or an iPad or something like that. But at least it'll allow me to do it and get that out like I want to. There's a real fear about being in a workplace and doing that stuff and people looking over your shoulder. The reality is what I've found is other people are doing it too. They may call you out, but they may be the ones also doing it, and they would be called out. But the reality is it's a human thing, and we need to be looking when we have the time to look, or something comes up where we need to make a change, or an opportunity comes up where we got to get it out there before 5 o'clock, which is in the middle of my day. And so having a template that you could just change a few things um, makes that a little easier, so you don't have to adjust a whole resume and have, feel like people are going to look over your shoulder at work. Yeah. Does that help?
So I think so. And I know you and I are meeting tomorrow anyway, so we could definitely talk more about this in our meeting tomorrow.
Okay, great. Excellent. All right.
Okay, Harrison, let's close up. Yeah.
All right, so we are going a little bit way over time today, guys. But anyway, it has been very productive. So thank you, Tony, for sharing your experience and the tips on navigating through the chaotic workforce that we are having at the moment. Once again, everyone, give them a round of applause. Thank you, Tony. Thank you for spending your time with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, and have a great afternoon.
All right, take care, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Thank you.